Welcome to the Improviding Life podcast, where we explore how life can be more livable. This is Lori Crawford, your host. So this month, I have the joy, the privilege, the pleasure of supporting one of our dear community members on Voxer. And one of the things that came up today and sort of surprised myself with how excited I was the conversation of like approaching food and eating as someone who's neurodiverse. And I suddenly realized this practice that I sort of like soft key do, but that I want to lean into more, right? It's something that I started when I was like newly postpartum, because I was adjusting to like nursing a baby and, you know, having these huge waves of hunger and thirst and all the things. And then as baby got more mobile, I started not prioritizing myself and my nourishment as much because then I was on the move more. Now I'm realizing like, oh, hey, being chronically dehydrated is not like the best feeling. So what do I want to do with this? And realizing that I sort of already had the answer for myself, and that's what we're going to explore. So this is going to be about nibbling while neurodiverse, right? And two sort of ideas of like what you can call this, because everyone's going to have a different take or approach, but two names came through. The first one is your calories galleries, or like a calorie gallery, and that is the one that I like the most. And an alternative that came up is like a snack shack, right? So the idea is having like a caddy, a shelf, a sort of, it can literally be like a gallery display. It can be a like shack, kudo points if you like repurpose the old like Barbie dream house or something, right? But some way on a counter or a shelf, a bookcase, a table, somewhere that's visible, right? You don't have to open a door to find it. Having a intentionally curated selection of calories, something that you can eat, because we all know that feeling, especially if you're neurodiverse, of wanting to eat, but the barrier of eating is too great. There's the mental, decisions, the fatigue of, can I eat this? What can I do with that? Do these three ingredients go together? Oh, that has to be peeled. I can't peel anything. Chopping, what even is chopping? It can be so easy for us to not feed ourselves because of the barriers to actually getting the food and the nutrients and the drinks in our body. So the idea of having a calorie gallery is that the only low key, only in air quotes, right? The only barrier is just physically grabbing something from there and opening the package. And just play around with that idea. So some that are in mine are these like vegan protein bars that I get at Costco, because then I know if it's vegan, it doesn't have egg or dairy, which are the two food allergies that my toddler has, and so I'm not eating them also, so that way I know, I can just grab that. I don't have to worry about eating it, or also if like she were to touch it, there's no issue like health-wise, right? Some coconut water, like the smaller packages of that. I even might put some like clementines or apples or like fruit that can like stay on the counter for quite a while and not get too like a mystery mush, right? Also maybe some like corn chips, any kind of granola bar, Chex Mix type, like nuts, seeds, applesauce pouches or like fruit puree pouches, anything where it's like literally just having that means that the only decision is just like, what am I reaching my arm out to? Hell, you could even close your eyes and just reach your arm out, and whatever you grab is whatever you eat, right? And if you find yourself disappointed at what you grabbed, that also can help you know what you wish you would have grabbed, right? So an approach to this idea is thinking like that feeling, right? You're opening the fridge and you're staring and like wishing something jumped out at you, or opening the pantry like, oh, what is it? What am I looking for, right? Thinking is like, what would you actually love to see in there? And then can that be something that's in your calorie gallery, right? Because then it's just the idea of, instead of approaching food as like everything has to be a quote prepared meal, everything has to be like cooked to be a meal, can there actually be this reminder that calories in, nutrients in, fueling your body can be simply that, fueling your body, and we can work through and adjust to the stigmas that we were given about what counts as a meal and all that shit, right? Like we can table that and be like, that's cute. If someone wants to pay for me to have a personal chef, that would be like awesome, but that's not the situation right now. So what does it actually look like to have access to accessible nutrition and hydration? What can that look like? And then playing with that and, and perhaps some of the fun of doing it all is playing with how you sort of dress up the space. So, like I'm going to be tinkering with mine to make it look more like a gallery, right? Whatever that looks like in the moment. If you're having a snack shack, maybe you're making it look like a little house. Maybe, that's part of the fun and getting that dopamine in your system, right, is the curation of it. So if it's the day or the space where you have the energy to be tinkering and playing, then that's when you can do that. And all the other times it serves as the sort of one-stop shop of like, okay, here, this is something going in my system. Wonderful. I didn't have to make any other decisions because at a time when I had the energy to make the decisions, I decided what to put in my gallery, right? And so, also this idea too of if you have the financial stability access, and equitable access to the resources to perhaps having a few things that are like auto ordered, maybe like every month replenishing the granola bars and the bag of clementines or whatever, right? And that will be a shipment that comes in however you already schedule your groceries, if you are a grocery scheduler. And then you would know specifically like, okay, these are my safe foods that I'm keeping on stock, right? Because that's another conversation that, that we were then going into is just like, identifying what those safe foods are, right? And then being able to have access to that. And again, the idea of having it visible is important because it's one less step. If you don't see it, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? Especially, that's how I'll speak to myself and my own ADHD. I literally like don't know something exists if it's not actually like in front of me. And also I can forget that I have systems and structures in place. So having it in a set place where I would walk past frequently. So I'm going to have mine right next to the dog treats because that's a routine. It's built in, right? I can on-ramp that with the energy practices I already have. So if I let, the dogs let me know and they want to go out, we're really lucky to have a fenced in yard. Really fortunate rather, and so every time they come in, then they sit there and wait and they're all cute and they want their treats. So I know I'm going to be at that counter at least twice a day, usually 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, right? And so then I get that visual cue of, okay, I'm giving them a snack. Do I need a snack? Do I need a drink? How can I contend for my own needs? And so being able to build that in, right? And then also, a byproduct is that I'm hoping to also, not pass on a stigma to my daughter that, we could only eat at certain times. When people say, it's like, no, I can check in. Hey, I'm feeling a little munchy. I want to go ahead and get something, right? So this is going to be, something that I'm also exploring in this, next week and really throughout the month as we're getting into the spring energy of what habits would actually be supportive. Can I do sort of a check of what things I have been doing in autopilot as I'm adulting on autopilot, and are they actually helpful? Or are there things that, need to be shifted around? Because again, adulting on autopilot can be really helpful to not have to make so many decisions. And also the challenge is that we are told what autopilot looks like and what we're supposed to do in autopilot. And that's what doesn't serve us, because it's usually this very capitalistic, patriarchal, racist-based output way of autopilot instead of this alternative, which is really looking at what supportive structures would exist for me and how can that help me not have so much of a mental load and how can that help life be more livable. So I'm obviously super excited to share this. We're already at the 8-minute mark and I've been trying to keep them around 5-ish minutes. So I'm going to sign off here. But as always, I hope you have a razzle dazzle day. And if that's not accessible, you can put an F on front and have a frazzle dazzle day. See ya.